Practically speaking, how do you stay in the presence of God? Is it possible in the midst of a difficult and stressful situation to really remain in God's presence and remain attentive to Him? I had a very long ride home on Friday night. Some of you may have heard I was out during the week on the outskirts of Chicago. I'm part of a 3-year program where basically priests come together and just dive deeper into the spiritual life. They learn more about prayer and how to teach and preach prayer to their people. And so it was a beautiful week for me. It was very much like a retreat, a week of renewal and a renewed encounter with the Lord. And I'm very excited just to enter more deeply into prayer with all of you. And whenever I scheduled my plane ride on months ago for this trip, I was planning on arriving home at 7:30 p.m., which would have been a perfect time to ride home on a Friday night. And of course, on a random Tuesday morning, a couple months later, I get an email, as some of you may have experienced before, where the airline basically lets you know that they've rearranged your flight schedule, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to accept it. And suddenly my flight is now no longer 7:30, it's going to land at 9:30. Okay, well, it's the best I can do. And so I just embraced that reality. So I'm planning on getting home at 9:30 p.m. in Lafayette. And I board the plane in Chicago early afternoon, have a long layover in Houston, and I finally, am able to get on the plane at 8:20. In order to come back to Lafayette. But many of you know also, you may remember, that Friday night was a monstrous thunderstorm. It was beautiful. Lots of thunder and lightning and rain all around southern Louisiana, especially in Lafayette. So, but nonetheless, we boarded the plane. Cool. So I just figured, I'm sure the flight, the pilot has it all figured out. I'm ready to get home. And we get on the plane, and we're sitting on the tarmac in Houston for about 30 minutes before we even leave the airport, and we're just sitting still. And you can imagine how frustrating that is. I would rather at least move forward and run around in circles, because at least you feel like you're being productive. But we didn't even do that. We just sat there still, and you're completely powerless. You're on this tiny little jet plane, and it's claustrophobic, and you have to keep your mask on, and you're just like, man, what am I going to do? Sitting still for 30 minutes. Before we even leave the airport. And we finally get in the air, and I was supposed to land at 9:30, remember? And so we're in the air, we're flying, and it's about 9:25, and I'm noticing we're still way up there. It doesn't look like we're going to be landing at 9:30 anytime soon. So suddenly it's about 9:30, and the flight attendant gets on the intercom, and she says, I have an announcement. The captain has decided that it's unsafe to land in Lafayette due to the weather. So we don't have enough fuel to just wait it out, so we have to land in Baton Rouge. Great. All right, so I'm just thinking through my head, maybe I can text my mom and let her know, but to maybe help see what I can do. Maybe I can look up Uber and see how much that costs. Oh, just kidding, no Wi-Fi because it's a tiny little jet plane. So I have to wait until we get to Baton Rouge to figure out a plan. So we land in Baton Rouge, it's about 10 o'clock. I immediately text my mom and Father Jared at the same time just to see what they're up to. I'm looking at the Uber prices, and I'm trying to come up with a plan. Fortunately, my mom and Father Jared, offered to go. I let Father Jared do it, to drive to Baton Rouge. So he's in his car right away. Great friend. So he's on his way. Remember, it's 10 o'clock. ETA for him is 11:20. So we're just sitting there, and it's terrible weather in Baton Rouge, by the way. And it's unsafe to get off the plane because we have to wait for a break, the crews to come and bring the little, because you can't go up straight to the airport. We don't have a big enough plane. So we have to get the little rolling chairs the rolling stairs that come our way. But the crew, it's lightning, so they can't work right now. So we have to wait. We're sitting still in the plane, and you're just seeing the monsoon of a storm outside, and you're just wondering, my goodness, when is this ever going to end? And now it's been 45 minutes. It's getting close to 11 o'clock. Father Jared's almost there, and we still haven't made any progress. We're just sitting there. And finally, they open up the door. We finally have a break in the rain. And I'm thinking, okay, great. God is good. The door's open, and the rain has finally kind of stopped a little bit. The radar says it shouldn't, like the radar says it's red, so they don't know what they're doing, the radar people, but, this might be our chance to get off the plane. And so one of the crew members get onto the plane from outside. They have a little secret conversation with the captain up in the front. And you know how frustrating that is. It whispers, 10 minutes. And you're like, the door's open and it's not raining and the radar says it should be. What's the big deal here? Like, it's not rocket science. You just get off the plane and we're all fine and dandy. We'll figure it out from there once we're in the airport. No, they keep talking. They finally get on the intercom. It's 11:15 now. Father Jared is there. And they get on the intercom and he says, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Yeah, right. And he says, he says this. He says, we've decided to get back in the air and try to go back to Lafayette. Yeah, I kid you not. Whew. Okay, so this is what happened. You see, the door was open and it's not raining and Father Jared's there. Like the only thing separating me and Father Jared is a short walk. And all right. Also, the radar says that it's like still a thunderstorm, so I don't know why they were so confident we're going to land in Lafayette. But anyway, so I raised my hand in a very calm voice, as you can imagine. And I said, if there's somebody waiting for me right here at the airport, could I just get off this plane right now? Pilot shocked. How could that be a possibility? Amazing. He couldn't even consider or fathom that this would be a desire of a few people on the plane. Other people start raising their hand. Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm ready to get off this plane right now. So, okay, this is about to get interesting. And listen, I was very polite. I stayed quiet, and I basically said, please give us the choice. It would be great to have the choice. So he said, I'm going to have to see, let me get back with you on that. So more secret little conversations up in the front, secret conversations, acting all important, and they come back, and the flight attendant walks over to me, trying to be unnoticed, and whispers to me so that everybody can still hear, because it's a tiny little jet plane. And she says, sir, would you still like to get off the plane? And I said, absolutely. And she said, okay, they're going to let you off, but they have to escort you. Okay, awesome. I'm going to get arrested. Great. So then other people overhear because it's a small jet plane, and they say, someone else stops her and says, are they going to let us off? And she says, I kid you not. She says, no, only the gentleman that asked earlier. Okay. Wow. You can imagine. Now I'm suddenly the most popular person on the plane. Yeah, I could just feel the hatred. Everyone looking at me, and I'm just staring down. Just thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do here, but we'll figure it out. But, I'm ready to get off this plane. So sure enough, they came, they escorted me off, and I was the only one to get off. And I have no idea what happened after that on that plane. I meet Father Jared, we drive back to Lafayette. I figured, let's stop at the airport. It's just a short little plane ride. They probably beat us there, but I just need to get off the plane. So we'll go there so I can get my luggage. Remember that? Yeah. So I got to go back to the airport and get my luggage. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning now. And we go into Lafayette Airport, and I see like 5 people in there, no workers. And they see me walk in. I'm looking at the monitor, see about the flight status. And they say, oh, are you looking for that Houston flight? I said, and I didn't tell them it was, I was on that flight. I just said, yeah. Did it land yet? And they said, no, it hasn't even left Baton Rouge yet. So, goodness gracious, I feel so bad for those people. I went back the next day to get my luggage. But, in a situation like that, we've all been there, maybe not at the airline, plenty of us probably have, but we've all been in situations where we're completely out of control, it makes no logical sense, and you could easily get so worked up and frustrated. And in a situation like that, how do you remain present to God? Is it possible to stay with Jesus in a moment like that? Today's gospel is about Jesus being the Good Shepherd. And Jesus says this very important quote. It's important for us perhaps to even memorize it. He says, I am the Good Shepherd. I know my sheep, and mine know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. I know my sheep, and mine know me. I fear that many of us perhaps know a lot about Jesus. We've grown up, we went to catechism, maybe went to Catholic school, we go to church, and we know about Jesus. We've heard plenty. But I just wonder how many of us really know him. There is a difference between knowing about someone and truly knowing him. And Jesus says, I know my sheep and they know me. God knows us better than we know ourselves, but the great tragedy is that so many of us don't let ourselves be known by him. So many of us don't take the time to really get to know him. And so what Jesus becomes is not a person, but instead just an idea, a thing that we know about. And when it's a thing that we know about, in those moments of stress and anxiety and craziness and drama, it's very easy to just put that to the side so that you can deal with what you got to deal with. And you're dealing with what you got to deal with alone. By God's grace, I had spent the whole week in prayer, in renewal, encountering the Lord in a renewed way. And I was able, even in that moment of anxiety and uncertainty, to really be at peace and to surrender to the Lord. I learned a prayer. I'll tell you about it. It goes like this. Father, I know that you have this figured out, and I don't. And I don't have to. That prayer of surrender became so helpful and so powerful Friday night. I was able to face that situation not alone, angry and frustrated, but instead with Jesus. I was able to recognize on that airplane, in my seat, that sitting right next to me was Jesus Christ, and that he had control of the situation. And I was able to face even the challenge, the suffering of going to bed late and the uncertainty, to face that with Jesus instead of alone. And it changed everything. In fact, Jesus gave me a way out. I know my sheep and mine know me. The great challenge is for us to really know Jesus, so that when we know him, we know that he is with us and we know how to remain with him in those difficult situations, in those moments of great trial and uncertainty and stress. Easier said than done. And there's plenty of times where I fail at this. But I know that the reason I was able to do it was because I had spent so much time with Jesus that whole week before. So much undistracted, quality time. In a sense, wasted time with the Lord. And so I really knew him in that moment, and I was able to stay with him. And so as we talk about how in the world can we live in this posture, what is the secret to remain in this presence of God? There's really a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said here, and there's a lot that we could really talk about to get better at this practice. So I can't claim to sum it all up for you today in one homily. I can't claim to just give you that golden nugget and everything's fine and dandy after that. But I can give you one nugget moving forward. The amount of undistracted time that we give to the Lord on a regular basis has a direct effect on the ability with which we're able to remain with him for the rest of the day. I'll say that again. The amount of undistracted time that we're able to give to the Lord on a regular basis has a direct effect on the ability with which we're able to remain with him for the rest of the day. If you desire to be with the Lord in those moments of stress and uncertainty, and if you feel unequipped to do so, or if you have been frustrated looking back on these experiences, feeling like you just completely lost sight of Jesus, perhaps God is inviting you to more quality time with him, to more regular, undistracted time with him. You see, it's hard. We're so used to being productive, or if not productive, so used to binging on entertainment. We're so used to be constantly up to something. And it's really hard for us to sit still and be quiet with the Lord, to really be with him on a regular basis. But it's in those moments that we come to know him, that we hear Jesus say, I am your shepherd and I know you. And it's for us to be able to respond and say, yes, Lord, I know you too. And I love you too. So that in those moments of uncertainty and stress and trial and difficulty and drama and chaos and busyness, we're able to face those moments not by ourselves, but with the Lord, with Jesus at our side, in a whole new perspective. Imagine if we could be a people that don't just know about Jesus, but really know him. It's going to take a little bit more prayer. We are going to have to talk a little bit more about prayer. We're going to have to enter more into a regular practice of prayer together, to really talk about the spiritual life in a way that's more relational and less methodic. So that as we pray, we're really interacting with a person instead of just doing an activity. And perhaps imagine how changed we would be, how much more prepared we would be for moments in the airport where we're completely out of control. So my invitation for you today is just to consider, how much time are you giving to God? How much undistracted prayer time are you giving to him? I understand that no one has time to pray. I don't have time to pray. I understand that we all have different seasons of life. It must be easier for the priest because, people that are married with kids, you don't know my life. And I get it. But is there a place where we can pray instead of pulling out our phone and scrolling? Or instead of picking up that remote immediately and turning on the TV? Or instead of whatever else it is that keeps us busy, is there at least some time in our day that we can give undistracted quality time to Jesus? Because if we can, perhaps the Lord's inviting us to increase that amount in a way that's reasonable so that we can better get to know him and therefore remain with him the rest of the day.